This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Monday, January 25th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Many of Mozambique's coastal residents are reeling on Monday after severe winds and heavy rains wrecked thousands of buildings, ruined crops, and displaced almost 7,000 people over the weekend, according to local officials. Tropical cyclone Eloise hit Mozambique's Sofala coastal province on Saturday morning before weakening and heading inland to dump rain on Zimbabwe, Swaziland, and South Africa. Authorities initially said Eloise had only caused minor damage in Mozambique's port city of Beira, but that it was too early to gauge the full extent of the damage across the rest of the region. Images provided by UNICEF showed flooded streets and damaged buildings in Beira. Mozambique's National Institute for Disaster Risk says Eloise has ruined nearly 137,000 hectares of crops, destroyed 9 schools, and over 1,000 homes. Somali officials and the Uganda People's Defense Forces say they killed 189 al-Shabaab fighters late Friday and in the early hours of Saturday in an operation in southern Somalia. Lower Shabelle Governor Abdulkadir Mohamed Siidi told VOA Ugandan soldiers under the African Union mission in Somalia used attack helicopter gunships. Governor Siidi said the strikes, along with ground assaults by the joint troops, occurred in a string of villages between the Qoryoley and Janaale districts in the Southern Somali region of Lower Shabelle. The Ugandan army said that during the operation, a large number of military hardware and items used by the terrorists were destroyed. AMISOM has been in Somalia for more than 10 years, keeping the peace and supporting Somalia's government to fend off attacks from al-Shabaab militants, which aim to topple the government and impose its own harsh interpretation of Islamic Sharia law. Uganda opposition presidential candidate Robert Kyagulanyi, also known as Bobi Wine of the National Unity Platform Party, is calling on Ugandans not to recognize the re-election of President Yoweri Museveni. Wine, who has been under house arrest since the January 14th presidential election, told VOA's James Buddy that the power resides in the people of Uganda and not with him. He says Ugandans must exercise their power through non-violent means to reclaim the election victory that he says was stolen by President Museveni. Wine's lawyers have asked the Ugandan High Court to order his release from house arrest. A decision is expected on Monday. Ugandan police say they are surrounding Wine's home as a preventive measure because they say they received information that Wine and his supporters were planning nationwide riots and protests. Farmers like Katelo, who grows crops in northern Kenya, are once again battling swarms of locusts, which the Food and Agriculture Organization is warning are reappearing across East Africa. David Doyle has this report.
A farmer trying to protect his farm.
In northern Kenya, farmer Katelo tries to chase locusts from his land, but his efforts are in vain. Swarms of the crop-destroying pests are reappearing across East Africa, the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization has warned. And in the town of Marsabit, they descended like a cloud. That's according to Ilyas Iman Abdulkadir of aid organization Catholic Relief Services, who filmed the invasion on Katelo's farm.
He was trying to chase them. Me and the driver also, we supported him, but it was too much, as you saw in the video. But he told me most of his maize and the beans have been affected.
Swarms of locusts exploded from the end of 2019, exacerbated by unusual weather patterns that were amplified by climate change. Kenya, Ethiopia and Somalia were the hardest hit. On Monday, the FAO said immature swarms had been seen in 7 of Kenya's counties compared to 4 the week before, and were also spreading in Ethiopia and Somalia. The FAO warned that any rainfall in the coming weeks will cause swarms to mature and lay eggs, giving rise to a new generation during February and March.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. The International Criminal Court says it has taken into custody a former Central African Republic commander of the Seleka faction suspected of war crimes and crimes against humanity. In Sunday's statement, the court said Mohamed Said Abdulkadir had surrendered to the court Sunday and had been arrested under a warrant issued under seal in January 2019 relating to alleged crimes from 2013. A date for his initial appearance in The Hague has not yet been set. The arrest comes against the backdrop of a state of emergency in the Central African Republic, with fighting between the country's army, backed by UN, Russian and Rwandan troops, and rebels seeking to overturn a December 27th vote in which President Faustin Archange Touadera was declared the winner. As Joe Biden begins his first full week as U.S. president, he faces many challenges, chief among them ramping up the nationwide coronavirus vaccination effort and next month's Senate impeachment trial of his predecessor, Donald Trump. Michelle Quinn reports.
On Monday, the article of impeachment against former President Donald Trump will be walked from the House to the Senate. On Tuesday, senators will be sworn in as jurors for a trial that will begin 2 weeks from now. Deep divisions remain in the nation over what Trump said before the January 6th attack on the Capitol and about the November election, which Trump wrongly claimed was stolen. The Trump campaign and its allies filed dozens of lawsuits, but won none. Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky has argued for more inquiries into the vote.
I think there was a great deal of evidence of fraud and changing of the election laws illegally, and I think a thorough investigation is warranted.
The impeachment trial comes at a time when the new Biden administration needs to work in concert with Congress to get things done. Is Washington taking on too much in the middle of a pandemic?
I thoroughly believe that we can handle this impeachment trial and, just as the American people are doing, juggle what we need to get done.
The top challenge facing the nation is stepping up the vaccination effort against the coronavirus. Biden has promised 100 million shots in his first 100 days in office, a figure some have said is too slow.
That's a floor. It's not a ceiling. It's also a goal that reflects the realities of what we face, what could go right, but also what could go wrong.
The United States has surpassed 25 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and more than 418,000 deaths, according to the Johns Hopkins University. Last week, Biden signed executive orders addressing the handling of the pandemic. One order mandates the wearing of face masks on federal property, intercity buses and trains, as well as in airports and on planes, to slow the spread of the virus that causes the COVID-19 disease. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
The U.S. House of Representatives is set to send an article of impeachment against Donald Trump to the Senate Monday, accusing the former president of inciting an insurrection during the January 6th mob storming of the Capitol. White House correspondent Patsy Kuswara has a story on why Democrats are still keen to pursue impeachment, even with Trump no longer in power.
Just 1 week after thousands of Donald Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, the House of Representatives voted to impeach him. On Monday, January 25th, the article of impeachment accusing the former president of inciting an insurrection will be brought to the Senate, the body that will hold the trial to either convict or acquit Trump. Republicans say Democrats are rushing the process.
This impeachment began with an unprecedentedly fast and minimal process over in the House. The sequel cannot be an insufficient Senate process that denies former President Trump his due process or damages the Senate or the presidency itself.
With President Joe Biden emphasizing a message of unity in his inauguration speech, the Democrats' push for impeachment is also criticized as hypocrisy, an accusation rejected by Democratic Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
I don't think it's very unifying to say, oh, let's just forget it and move on. That's not how you unify.
Legal experts disagree about whether the Senate can convict a former president, but with Democrats holding a slim majority, a trial is likely to proceed. A two-thirds majority vote, or all 50 Democratic senators and at least 17 Republicans, is needed to convict Trump.
One of the consequences of impeachment can be disqualification from further office. So their aim, as I understand it, is first to send a message about the invasion of the Capitol on January the 6th, and second, to practically ensure that President Trump is unable to run for public office, at least at the national level.
Trump has implied he may run again in 2024.
We love you. We will be back in some form.
Since Trump was not removed before his term ended, he is entitled to privileges including pension, funding for office and staff, and Secret Service protection. That is, unless Democrats move to amend the former President's Act that regulates those perks if Trump is found guilty. While Biden said he is leaving Trump's impeachment in the hands of Congress, he wants to ensure that an impeachment trial does not slow down Senate confirmation of his cabinet nominees.
The more time we have to get up and running and meet these crises, the better.
Trump's impeachment trial can start as early as February. He is the only American president impeached twice. No previous president has been tried by the Senate after leaving office. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
India has begun sending COVID-19 vaccines to neighboring countries as its level of vaccine production has put it at the forefront. Suppliers of affordable vaccines to low and middle-income nations urgently seeking supplies. As Anjana Pasricha reports from New Delhi, India hopes to both raise its global profile with vaccine diplomacy and win back influence in South Asia, where China has been making inroads.
This is the most precious medical cargo for countries waiting to launch COVID-19 immunization programs, vaccines. Days after rolling out a nationwide inoculation program, India, the world's biggest vaccine producer, donated millions of doses of the British-developed AstraZeneca vaccine to Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, the Maldives, Seychelles, Mauritius, and Myanmar. The affordable and easily storable vaccine being made by an Indian company in partnership with AstraZeneca is in huge demand in developing countries. The goodwill gesture won praise from neighbors such as Bangladesh.
A friend in need is a friend indeed.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has emphasized that neighboring countries will be prioritized in the distribution of vaccine supplies. The initiative is called Vaccine Friendship. The vaccine diplomacy, say analysts, is a means to push back against China, which has been expanding its influence in South Asia. While China is also giving its vaccine to several countries, such as Turkey, South Asian countries had sought supplies of the AstraZeneca vaccine developed in Britain.
India will want to make a point here that in this area, unlike in some others where China usually overshadows India in terms of military and economic might, in this field, in pharmaceuticals, in healthcare, in affordable healthcare especially, India has actually a comparative edge and advantage over China. So I think that will be certainly a subtle message going around that you can depend on us.
New Delhi has also begun commercial shipments of vaccines. The first consignments have reached Brazil and Morocco. More will go to countries in Africa and South America in the coming months. Following New Delhi's approval of the AstraZeneca vaccine and one developed by an Indian company, Modi said this month that India will play a frontline role in providing vaccines.
Today, India with not one but two made-in-India vaccines is ready to protect humanity. Being pharmacy of the world, India has supplied essential medicines to the needy across the globe in the past and is doing it today as well.
As Indian companies ramp up production to meet the huge demand, India hopes to raise its global profile by being seen as a country that will help end the pandemic.
It's a lot of this has to do with image. So the vaccine diplomacy is not about concrete, material benefits. It's about image and soft power.
There has been growing criticism of vaccine inequality. While inoculation programs are well underway in wealthy nations, developing countries are struggling to secure supplies. Anjana Pasricha for VOA News, New Delhi.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, we'll have a profile of the new Vice President of the United States. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Africa 54. America's first ever female Vice President, Kamala Harris, has been sworn into office. VOA's congressional correspondent, Catherine Gibson, reports on the road ahead for Harris as she settles into the second most powerful position in the U.S. government.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
A history-making moment in the United States.
So help me God.
As former Senator Kamala Harris becomes the nation's first female vice president.
It is my honor to be here, to stand on the shoulders of those who came before.
The 56-year-old Harris getting right to work alongside President Joe Biden and serving in one of her most important roles as the tie-breaking vote in a Democratic majority U.S. Senate. Harris also is the first Indian American and Black person to serve as vice president. Analysts say her rise sends a powerful message.
Never in the executive branch have we had a woman vice president and still not president. But not only that, but to have a woman of color, a woman from immigrant parents who came to this country for a better life.
The daughter of an Indian mother and a Jamaican father, Harris grew up in Oakland, California. A mural of her now on the school she was bused to as a child as part of racial integration efforts.
She's broken so many glass ceilings for so many women.
A graduate of Howard University, an all-black college in Washington, D.C., Harris became the first Black female San Francisco prosecutor beginning in 2004, and then California Attorney General in 2010. Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! During Black Lives Matter protests this summer, some progressives complained Harris had been a much tougher prosecutor than she let on, took contradictory positions on the death penalty, and failed to hold police accountable for misconduct.
This is a moment in time that is requiring us to fight.
Harris first made history in California when she was elected to the U.S. Senate.
It's important that people see people in power that look like themselves.
Harris, who speaks often about her role as an aunt and a stepmother, is married to lawyer Doug Emhoff, who will now be the second gentleman, an entirely new position in White House history. And while the most important job for a vice president is to be ready to step in for the president if needed, analysts say Harris may also make use of her historic firsts.
She can be a stateswoman representing the United States, but I think she'll travel around the United States as well to show that symbolism of what she's doing.
A new global role in the White House, celebrated halfway around the world in her ancestral village in India. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
Kamala Harris made history as the first woman and first person of African and South Asian descent to serve as vice president when she was sworn into office last week. That means her husband, Doug Emhoff, became America's first ever second gentleman in the White House. More with VOA correspondent Mariama Diallo.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President-elect.
Vice President Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, made history as the first man to hold the role of vice presidential spouse. Emhoff was by his wife's side when she was being sworn into office as America's first female vice president.
Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
This is an enormous step in the quest for gender equality, says Sarah Rowley, assistant professor of history at DePaul University, but it shows how much remains to be done.
It also indicates how much farther we have to go to reach gender equity, given the fact that this is the first time that we've been in this situation. 232 years after the first presidential election, 100 years after the 19th Amendment, and 36 years after the first time that a woman was on a major party presidential or vice presidential ticket.
Emhoff is only the fourth man to be spouse of a major party presidential or vice presidential ticket. There was the Walter Mondale Geraldine Ferraro ticket in 1984.
My fellow citizens.
Followed by John McCain, Sarah Palin in 2008, and Hillary Clinton, Tim Kaine in 2016.
I was here a year ago.
Emhoff shatters preconceived notions in multiple ways, says University of New Haven's Matthew Schmidt, who spoke to VOA before the inauguration.
Mr. Emhoff is leaving his job. Mr. Emhoff is not Christian, he's Jewish. That also marks a first. And of course, you have a marriage that happens later in life, that happens after a divorce, that brings children from a mixed family, both racially and religiously, together in this new family. You have a vice president who becomes Mamala.
Mamala, Harris says, is what her stepchildren call her, mixing mom and Kamala.
Vice president will be great, but Mamala will always be the one that means the most.
On the night Joe Biden was announced the winner of the presidential elections, Harris tweeted a photo of herself and Emhoff smiling with the caption, "Meet the love of my life."
He has really leaned into his familial role. His public presence during the campaign has really been one that has highlighted his love for Kamala Harris. They focus on their love story a lot and his role as a father, as a hubby.
Harris and Emhoff met in 2013 and married a year later. It was Harris's first marriage and Emhoff's second. His children are in their 20s. So far, the 56-year-old has said little about what issues he'll champion as second gentleman. He stepped down as a partner at the law firm DLA Piper and is joining Georgetown University Law Center in Washington as a faculty member this month. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Washington.
Hundreds of people remained behind bars in Russia Sunday, a day after they were arrested for joining nationwide street protests demanding the release of jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The opposition figure was detained a week ago upon his return to Russia from Germany, where he spent the last several months recovering from a nearly fatal poisoning attack he blames on the Russian government, and that the Kremlin denies. From Moscow, Charles Maines reports.
Arrest after arrest after arrest. On Saturday, the detentions kept coming, more than 3,000 in all. Authorities had promised a tough response, arguing protests were not only illegal, but a public health risk due to the coronavirus.
We hereby enforce
чтобы обеспечить вашу безопасность.
On Pushkin Square in central Moscow, demonstrators had come to demand freedom for opposition leader Alexei Navalny just months after a poisoning attack nearly took his life. Some were demanding change after years under President Vladimir Putin.
I never seen the other president in my country, and I'm 24 and I'm kind of tired.
While others resented different forms of authority.
When I woke up, my mom and dad said, no, Kirill, you shouldn't go there, like you shouldn't against Putin because you can't.
Navalny's not afraid, and neither am I, reads this sign. Similar rallies took place across the country, in far-off cities like Khabarovsk, Irkutsk, and Vladivostok, even as the Kremlin downplayed the size of the Saturday protests. Protesters even took to the streets in remote northern Yakutsk, where the temperature registered at minus 50 degrees Celsius. The turnout suggested Navalny's anti-corruption message, fueled by social media, was reaching the nation, and younger Russians in particular, despite Kremlin efforts to label him as politically insignificant or as a Western-backed stooge. What is not clear is whether it changes Navalny's fate. The opposition leader is currently in a Moscow prison over a supposed parole violation. But he faces the possibility of a longer prison sentence on what Navalny and his supporters say are fabricated charges.
The way they took him, the way they captured him, was totally against the Russian law, against our constitution and all. And if they can do it to a person like that, with millions of followers and all, they can do it to us.
Authorities launched new criminal probes against several protesters whom they say attacked police. Prison sentences may follow. The government tactic has worked in the past to tamp down on dissent at home. How effective it will be this time is a question on the minds of many. Navalny's team says demonstrations will continue as long as the opposition leader remains behind bars. Charles Maines for VOA News, Moscow.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.
Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America headquarters here in Washington. I am Shaka Sali. Straight Talk Africa, we call it like it is. We discuss issues that reflect the interests of our audience without fear or favor. We are guided by facts, and I look at myself as a servant of nothing but the truth.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Lina Khmudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.